Hey y'all, this is Sam with the Roots of Change podcast, and we are here with Lauren Goche to talk about housing, privilege, and how we build a better world. How are you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing awesome. I'm happy to be on the podcast, and anytime I can be part of building a better world. It's a good day.
Yes, yeah. And I was really excited to talk to you today just because it's very nice to have heart forward conversations about future building and how we can create something better than what we are currently living through. To introduce you, I'm just so obsessed with your bio and I just want to read it out because it's like perfect. Lauren Goche sells houses, renovates old ones, and moonlights as a professional chaos wrangler. She's been described as part therapist, part hype squad, and part witch with Wi-Fi, helping people navigate big transitions with humor, heart, and the occasional snack. At the center of it all, she believes housing isn't just about walls and roof. It's about equity, belonging, and making sure everyone gets a seat at the block party, preferably with better lighting and fewer weird uncles. So I love that. Tell us a little bit about how you got into housing and why, belonging and equity are so important to you.
Well, how I got into housing is very much like I was like growing weed in my 30s and like being like, I don't want to be in a basement. This is shitty. And trying to do like, what the hell do I do with my life? And a friend of mine approached me and she's like, you'd be really good at real estate. I was like, don't tell me what to do, first of all. And she was like, no, you would really enjoy it and you'd be good at it. And honestly, for a lack of anything better, I was like, sure. So I didn't get into it kind of values aligned. I got into it because I was desperate. And it turns out that it is like everything kind of clicked. Like I was pretty housing insecure growing up. I think that I don't know how many times we moved until I was like in middle school. And there were times where housing wasn't guaranteed. And I don't, this is probably so not the right era, but there was like the Boxcar Children books as a kid. And it was like these orphans and they lived in a boxcar and they like survived on their own. And I like studied that because I was like, that might be me someday. And not because like, oh, it's cool. I was like, no, there were times where I was like, okay, I would like do things like see where all the dryer vents were because I was like, oh, I could get warm by a dryer vent. We were never houseless, but it was just always on the goddamn edge kind of thing. And so I think that once I got into it and realized how important housing in general is and how it's just safety, and in my opinion, a human right, I was like, oh, this is a right fit. And then the second part of your question, I mean, I was lucky in that I grew up with a mom who was very social justice forward. And, I don't even remember my first protest kind of thing. That said, I grew up in very, very white Oregon, but we got exposed as much as my mom humanly could to diversity. And, you know, it was not the easiest in Oregon. That said, my aunts and cousins and so many people are queer in the family. And so that was just kind of baseline. And then the older I've gotten, the more you kind of learn, you just go, oh, wait, to me, it's gone from like kind of a background to now just forefront in general. And it's kind of a driver in my life is kind of it's, a non-negotiable kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I really love that journey because I feel like, sometimes things come in our path and it's like that was the right thing. Even though you don't have all the information ahead of you, it was like, nope, this is like going to be perfect. And it's just kind of moving through those uncertain moments. And I feel like, we're in an uncertain moment right now. You mentioned Oregon. I think a lot about Grants Pass ruling. We're actually I think it's the last day of SCOTUS, so we just received some pretty terrible SCOTUS rulings, particularly around trans youth.
God,
And
I
I,
haven't seen that, but I can only imagine it's how horrible it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just, they're going after very specific populations, and they are using housing as a tool. And so I think, I really want to get into kind of the belonging piece of housing and, the ripple effects of when you are housing insecure, what really happens. I think a lot about youth here in the Bay Area. We have a lot of unhoused folks. There's a lot of unhoused families. And, they go to school.
Through no fault of their own.
No fault
they have
of
jobs.
That full-time jobs. We'll get into this, but on the road trip, I ran into unhoused families everywhere I went across this country. And that was a year ago. So it has only gotten worse.
And it's only gotten worse. Yeah. It's so much worse.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about kind of those ripple effects and then how you approach that in your work.
I mean, I think that, God, this was so many years ago. I don't remember. And it was the neuroscience. It was a talk. What was it called? I think it was the neuroscience of racism. But what it really boiled down to was how sustained high levels of cortisol in your body, basically fucks you for your whole life. And if anybody has had any kind of trauma or instability, they know that. It takes a whole lifetime to unwind it if you can. And that is if you can takes privilege, time, and money, to be dead honest. And, so that's one thing. I think I already mentioned this, but I do think that housing is a human right. I think just like universal basic income, we should be providing housing. I mean, we have the fucking tax money. We're just using it for bullshit. It's not an issue, it's not an issue of, well, is there money? It's how it's used. So, I think that the ripple effects of unstable housing just continues to go on and on and on. I mean, it was interesting in my own journey when I finally bought my first house, and it was by the skin of my teeth. I like to say this a lot in that, generational wealth, people think of generational wealth as millions of dollars or something, but it can be, as I think of it, as a complete spectrum. It can be those billionaires, but it can also be, what, we didn't have money, but guess what? I always had the same house growing up. My parents are still together. There's no abuse. We just had a loving family. That is generational wealth. That is will make you successful because you're not fighting your own internal battles all the time. That is something. And not that that's the ideal, but that gist of stability, I guess, is however that stability is for you. Let's just say that, because I don't want to create a bullshit, perfect family bullshit, but because that doesn't exist. But I guess stability and, parents that could emotionally regulate, which I did not have. So that's one thing. But also, when I bought my first house, I really couldn't afford it. The landlord was selling and I was scrambling. And basically it came to the point where actually one lender said, I'm sorry, you can't do it. It was a week before close. I had found another lender. They found a way to do it. They're like, you need $9,000 extra dollars. And I called up my dad and he was like, I don't have 9,000. He's like, but I can take it from my retirement. You owe me the taxes that I'll owe on that. And it will be reflected in the will that you got that. And, so $9,000 to some people isn't a lot, but to us it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that I like to talk about the generational wealth as the whole thing. I don't know. I got off topic. I don't know. Sorry. Was that vaguely on topic?
I really appreciate that, because you're talking to, we think about wealth as the actual tangible money. And what you're speaking to is the emotional piece, the physical safety, and all of the things that come with that. I mean, having a full night's sleep and not having to worry if someone's going to knock on your car because you're sleeping in your car. These are just very basic things that when we don't have that our needs met like that, that takes so much out of us.
It just takes up so much of our mental, emotional, physical, everything to constantly be fight or flight like that. There's no room for anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely there's no room to thrive.
Right. And taking it to like kind of the systems level too, you know, that is by design. A lot of that is like, one, we're in Trump's America, and so we are at the drinking from the fire hose. We are throwing shit at the wall, and just overwhelming folks, so that all they're focused on is their individualism. All they're focused on is like, do I even have enough for the next day? And so, you know, that's
it's working.
It's working. And that's where I think, you know, the piece around housing is such an important systemic thing that we need to be talking about, because it can be such a liberatory tool when we do have housing. Tell us a little bit about kind of some folks that you've helped house and what that experience has been.
Oh my God, where do I even start? I mean, there's just a simple, like, I'm the first person in my literal family to ever own a house. I didn't think it was possible. The tears, you know, to, you know, I really take pride in working really hard for any marginalized community. And that is fucking satisfying, to be honest. Like, a trans couple having their first baby. Like they were pregnant. They were like, we gots to find somewhere to land now. And it was cool because there's like it ended up being, what do you call it? It's like a cottage cluster. So it's like, they're like little townhouses, but there was, I don't know, maybe like 8 of them. And the builder was so good that I was like, oh, I need to find more people and shove people into this. And so I sold 3 units in that, and all of them were so community minded, and they were specifically, like, the builder built to have community, and all that stuff. And so I was able to have people that were like, oh, we also want to support each other in this little community. That kind of stuff is really exciting. I'm constantly encouraging friends to buy together, because that's a way to pool resources and I mean, not just resources, but like care and time and all that stuff. So I've helped quite a few friends buy property together. I have a polycule that's buying right now. And just, again, like, doing things in a way that isn't the norm, is like, let's find a way to, we have to work inside the system. Unfortunately, we are, as I like to say, we're all in the soup. We can't escape the soup.
Yeah.
And so, but we can do our best within the soup, and so within that, finding ways to find stability and finding ways to build community. And yeah, I think that things like that are really what motivate me. Like, I'm really lucky in that at this point, I really only work with people who are values aligned. I'm wildly grateful that I am at that point in my career where if I'm like, no, this isn't a good match, I don't need your money. I'd rather take 3 little baby, barely be able to get into a house buyers that are kind and care about community than whatever the fuck you are over here. So I'm really lucky in that way.
I really love that, because you're like transforming, or like I like to use the word alchemize. Like you're transforming what is bad and making it into something good. And I think, the real estate industry, housing, like, if we're going to be honest about where that origins come from, it comes from land. It comes from the theft of indigenous land.
Let me tell you, like, when a couple years back, I I had like a couple years. It was more than a couple years. I had a pretty big, like, what the fuck? I'm selling stolen land. Like, what the fuck am I doing? And I was like, do I just stop? And then it went back to the same, I'm in the soup. I can't get out of the soup. No one can get out of the soup at the moment. Might as well help the soup be more nutritious. That's a really weird analogy. So I don't know. So, really selling stolen land was a hard thing for me to like wrap my mind around. And ultimately I was like, well, I might as well be inside the system doing what I can. I mean, it's a shitty excuse, but it's what I got.
No, it's such a balance. And I think, there's a lot of conversations in the Indigenous community around, land back, but also just
absolutely
buying of land and supporting communities. And so, a lot of that really is about redistribution. It's about access. It's about making sure housing can be a human right for Indigenous communities and other communities who are.
I mean, if we're giving housing to anybody, it should be fucking Indigenous communities first and foremost. Let's be fucking real. and then it goes on and on and on. And yeah, we should be all kinds of reparations and land back. But, there's a couple like really good grants out there, down payment grants, that have like incredible terms. So, getting Indigenous folks access to that is really satisfying to be like, let's go. And, I have been known to bully my friends into getting their shit together to buy.
Nice. Yeah. No, it's really important. Like every little thing helps. And I think like the way that you're approaching, and it's not, I want to say real estate, but you're not in real estate. So I'm not going to like, that's a completely different, like that higher tier of like the way that they are, planning out cities and
yeah. Like, yeah.
But I love that you are so intentional about just different choices, like mentioning like, this is a good home builder. Like I'm going to prioritize people who make good homes because a lot of that isn't even happening right now either.
Dude, don't get me started on that. It's real shit. People, it's just, we're late stage capitalism. Everybody's just like greedy. And it's mind numbing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely rewarding the folks that are doing it well is always good.
Yeah. What are some of the other ways like you're thinking about your work so that you are kind of navigating those landmines, I guess?
I think just trying to, I don't know if this is an answer to your question, but like constantly just trying to learn from my community, to be honest, and learning where I can help and where I can give advice and I think just being a resource in general. I get a lot of calls, people I can't necessarily help directly, but I can point them in the right direction. I can connect them with someone, stuff like that. Every time I talk about a nonprofit here in Portland that is incredible. It's called Taking Ownership. And it is, have you heard of it yet?
No.
It's so good. So it was started by my friend Randall. It was right after the George Floyd murder. And he had already thought about doing something like this. And he just like, I don't remember what his degree is, something in, I don't quite remember. But then he was like, what the hell do I actually do? And so he started a nonprofit. And it is to keep Black Portlanders in their homes. And so they have raised a flying fuck ton of money. And it is like getting Black Portlanders who, lots of elderly folks that can't take care of their houses anymore. And, for instance, they can't take care of their house. And so the fucking, white family lives next door and then puts a complaint to the city, and then they still can't take care of it. And so more complaints. And then all of a sudden they have a lien on their house for weeds. And I'm not exaggerating, actually. This is an actual thing. So taking ownership does, they go and, they fix houses, they fix roofs, they do makeovers, they take care of houses. And then they've created a relationship with the city to go to the city and be like, mm-mm, you're going to go ahead and forgive this now. Thank you so much.
Oh,
this is
good.
bullshit. Yeah. And they've partnered with folks who do have generational wealth, who are basically selling houses to Black and Indigenous folks here in Portland for all they owe on it. So, for instance, I was involved in one that I think they owed $300,000 and the house was worth like $750 or something like that. I don't quite remember. It was years ago. And so they're basically like gifting equity, that kind of thing, which is another way. There's just all these things. And so like getting people connected with that or different grants. And so like, again, I can't necessarily help everybody, but I can do my best to connect folks with people who might.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of like reducing the individual burden. And I also want to up level your what is it? Your housing checklist. I love that.
the maintenance one.
Yes.
Dude, because if you've never owned a house, how the fuck do you know how to take care of this shit? Also, as like, I just had to get my water heater replaced because I did not know that my fancy heat pump water heater has an air filter. No one told me. Did I read the manual? Absolutely not. And so it literally blew the compressor and I had to get a brand new one. And that my HVAC person was like, hey, so you should clean this. And I was like, thanks. So speaking of which, I got to add that into my list. I was like, well, I was glad I'm a good example. But yeah, there's no way that, there's some people that know, and there's some people that are lucky and have parents that'll teach them. And there's a lot of people that don't. And so just, handing you keys of the house and being like, good luck, bye. It's a recipe for disaster. And it's and this is also like, this is how people build generational wealth. And then this is an investment. Housing is so weird. It's a human right. It's also an investment, right? So like, it's kind of a mind fuck in that I want my folks to start building generational wealth, but also I want them housed. It's confused. It's hard because it's so emotional, but it's also like, so that's why, oftentimes I'm telling my folks, like, I am looking out for you, but I'm also looking out for your investment. And if I'm so bossy, I'm like, you can't buy this house. It is a terrible investment. No, I don't care how cute you think it is. Stop. Nope. Put it down.
That's so important though. I mean, like, I know that they are not doing that in most places. And like, just in most parts of society at this point, like we don't have instructions for how to do things, and just having like, that's the privilege that we can pass on. It's just having that knowledge.
Dude, having the knowledge about finances that I didn't have and that I have now, like I will tell anybody that'll listen how to leverage shit. And like the mind shift from growing up super poor to like being stable is kind of a mind fuck. And like, I will, anybody that'll listen, like I tell them, when I was like years in real estate, I was like $65,000 in a credit card debt. Like, that's not nothing, like it was because that's how I was living while I was trying to build my business, like it was not an overnight success. I'll just say that. It wouldn't be me. It was slow burn.
Yeah.
But, I started looking at honestly, the women around me who were successful. And I was like, what am I help? And they're like, oh yeah, you do this and this and this. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And, like, for instance, I bought my house barely. I had roommates for the first 3 or 4 years, maybe, in a like 900 square foot house. It was tiny. Yeah. And then, I did enough stuff on the house that I got some equity and I got a home equity line of credit and I paid off my credit cards with that. And then I was able to pay off that because it was like, 5% versus 25% interest. I would have never thought to do that if I hadn't been taught by the elders around me, like, this is what you're going to do. And I was like, but debt. And they're like, no, not all debt is bad. And like, so I am passionate about passing on that knowledge too. Like, I know that sounds simple, but like, it took a lot for my brain to change. Like, I fought honestly tooth and nail to even think that, oh, I could take out more debt to pay off my debt. And then they're like, no, it's simple math. And I was like, and, and like fear and like freak out and scarcity. And like, and I was afraid of the security that I'd built that it'd be taken away. And it's all that wrapped into one. And so like, it's not just the housing. It's like, cool, now I have an investment. Don't fumble it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole emotional layer to that piece, but also to building your business, of just like, that is a whole other kind of weight that you're carrying, as you're moving through these like major decisions. And I feel like that's another thing that we don't really talk about. And the point about debt is just, we think about like wealthy people right now, like they are wealthy because one, they have all of the insider information and tips. They don't share that out. Like I used to work for banks in the country and the world, doing advertising for them. They don't educate people. They do not want us to understand how banking and
they want you to fuck up and get all your fees.
Yeah. Yeah. The best customer for Wells Fargo is a person who is in credit card debt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a well planned out scam.
Yeah.
That it's all built by and for rich white dudes to fuck everybody else. And surprise, it's working.
Yes. And then it goes back to the land theft and the original reason why we are on Turtle Island to begin with. But I want to get into a little bit about your business model, because I feel like, we know the landscape and the landscape of housing, but also just our world and society and how we're built in capitalism, late stage capitalism. Like, how are you doing things a bit differently? You call it, I'm not for everyone business model. Like, tell us a little bit about that and kind of like why that is the right approach in our current kind of late stage capitalism world.
I mean, I'm not for everyone in that, like, I don't want to be for everyone. I don't have capacity to pretend like I am someone who I'm not, first of all. And also, the majority of my community is honestly, for the most part, some part of marginalized community, whether they're LGBTQ plus or brown or like, it just like, that's just my community. And like, I don't want to help someone that isn't going to protect them, period. And so I just like, you can't choose where to put your money on everything. You just can't in this world. You can do your absolute best. And in the decisions that you can make, you can shop locally and, you can do your best. We're still electricity that is, blah, 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 right? Unless we all live in a cave, which also isn't community. So, I think that I am very loud about my views, and that makes it so anybody that pays attention can self-select out, to be honest. Like I don't think I really need to even get that far to talk to people. I think that most people are like, oh yeah, she's a loudmouth and a raving feminist, and is just constantly trying to speak my mind about everything. Like that just self-selects everybody out. And so that's what I mean when I'm like, I am not for everybody, because I don't want to be for everybody. And it's been great. It's been so, and then also like, you work harder for people that you like are aligned with, and you like, if there's some asshole that is, just a greedy dick, like you're going to be like, sure. Like well, I am. I know there's other people that don't give a shit where their money comes from. But for me, I'm just not going to work as hard. Like, I'm going to be like, okay, sure. That's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine too, it self-select people out, but I bet you're getting more people who are like gravitating towards that because you're finding the people that are like, oh, this is authentic, this is real. I actually want to connect with that.
Yeah. 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 And that is ultimately makes it so we just have the biggest sweethearts. And like, it's not even like, it's like we have a whole spectrum. We have our clients' parents that are just like adorable and sweet, and we just love them so much, and they're so excited to be able to live by their kids, and and that's and help raise their grandkids, which is again like creating the communities that are gonna be successful and protected is by doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, really attracting the right people. I don't know if I'd still be doing it if I didn't. Honestly, I think I'd probably be so burned out that I would just be like, run into the ocean.
Yeah.
Call it a day.
Well, and I think that's such an important like lesson for all of us. Like, you're obviously self-employed, so you have more of that flexibility to make those decisions. And like when we're in the working environment, we don't always have that choice. But like,
True.
how are you protecting your energies? How are you gravitating to the people who are going to be like championing you and that you're going to feel good when you do that work? And like,
Or championing the people I care about.
yeah.
Yeah. I want a fucking pride flag on every one of my clients' houses.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe I should make them. I'm like, that's a new requirement. It would be, there would be no pushback. I'll just put it that way.
I love it. Yes. Make sure that the houses are all like rainbow like lights too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just like, I'm sorry, this is just part of the package.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And like, speaking of just like, marginalized communities, how are you kind of moving and navigating your own privileges and also like your own lived reality, coming from being housing insecure, but also having the privilege of having white skin? Like, what is that balance for you within your business?
I mean, I am extremely aware of my privilege, and I think I just mostly try to use it to my community's advantage, to be honest. I think that as much as I can, and that means different things at different times. Again, that's be it a resource, or it's investing in a friend's, like, business that needs to get off the ground, or donating to mutual aid, or, just those little things. But I think for me, it's really just like, I understand my extreme privilege, and it's balanced by growing up poor and housing insecure. And so it's like, you kind of get to like straddle both lines and hopefully bring folks over. Even my dad is like a 73-year-old white dude. And, he's getting him to understand white privilege. He got there, but, and now he's like very blessed. He's like, will preach to anybody that'll listen. But, I think it's one of those things. It's like, I'm not going to take the time to teach everybody because that's not my problem. But my dad, like, I remember one time he was like, why are people putting pronouns on their emails years ago? And I was like, okay, do you actually want to know? And he was like, I do. And I was like, okay. And it was like a 2 or 3 hour conversation. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I can do this. Okay, I can do this. And then he was like, I put his pronouns in his email because he wanted to do, and like, I'm willing to do that for the people that have any interest in learning.
Right.
And that, and I think that's something that white people, like, they like, stop putting that on brown people or queer people, like, we got to do it. We created this shit.
Yeah. There's a lot of labor that gets placed onto marginalized communities that
absolutely
we all know the systemic, we all have the ability to have these conversations, to move through our own white privilege, to move through like how we are moving in this world. And, you know, it's a hard process. There's definitely things that you have to like reckon with. But if you don't do that.
And that said, my best friend who is Indigenous and Mexican, like she has put in the work with me. She has put in so many hours of getting my fucking head wrapped around shit that my little privileged brain couldn't understand. And she has put in the work. I mean, she's my best friend. Like, hopefully she's like, and I've asked her, she was like, because you always were willing. You always, you were like, wanted to get there. It's like, thank you. So like, you've heard of the, what is it called? The zone of, what is it called? Zone of proximal education. Oh man, I am blanking. It is an education term. I wish I could remember the term. It's basically like, if you look at like concentric circles, right? Like the person here that has the most knowledge about something is never going to talk to this person out here. They just don't have a common language. But what they can do is they can talk to this person, and like this person will have a little less knowledge, but then this person will talk to this person, and it'll eventually get out here. And then, you know, each person moves inside. And so I think of it that way, is like, you know, Montserrat has put so much time and energy and love into helping me. And so I try to do the same to people that are like curious.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that's a great analogy, because it is like it's also a protective mechanism, right? Because like you need to have that that is a full conversation to have all the way out in the circle. And so like that is on us. Like I'm a light-skinned Indigenous Latina. And so it's such a interesting way of walking in the world, because I absolutely have white privilege. I was raised in a white community, but then there are these things that just, you're like, how is that really happening to me? And I think what you're talking about with like the moving through and having that kind of those challenging conversations, it's like trust. It's having those trusted relationships.
It's so much about trust. It is just like trust on both sides. Like, is the person that's teaching trusting that this person actually wants to know, and the person that's learning is trusting that that person is honestly doing it out of pure love most of the time, because it is exhausting. But it's so much trust, and that has to, you know, you don't get trust. And it's interesting because like I talk about trust a lot in my business too. Like that's one of the things with my clients. Like I'm like, I know you just met me, but you do have to trust that I am putting your best interests at all times.
Yeah.
And that is, and like, but how do you build trust with someone you just?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think like trust in our world is so challenging right now.
Yeah.
So it's like there's this desire in some people, you know, not all people, but there's a desire to do better. And then there's this lack of a space to be able to do that and to mess up and to like keep trying. And the way that our like social media and algorithms work, you know, it's like you're canceled.
God forbid you mess up anywhere publicly.
Yeah.
You're fucked. You're super fucked. And like, there should be some people that should be fucking straight up canceled. Like, fuck that. But there's everything in the middle. And there's just not, it's just so black and white of that. And it doesn't, we've all seen cancel culture and someone trying to be like, I didn't like, and then like a bad apology or a good apology that isn't ever going to make anybody happy. And so no matter what, you're, you know, and just, there's gotta be somewhere in the middle of that. I have to bring up this thing I found I was scrolling on TikTok, and this gal, she was so excited about her new business, and she was like, they're customizable carabiners, and please order one now. It's beaner. And everybody was like, no. And she'd like never heard the slur. And she was like, she came back on. She was in tears. She was like, oh my God, I've printed up. I've spent my whole life savings. Oh my God, what have I done? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was a thing. It didn't even occur to me. Oh my God. It was like, and then it was very, very sweet. The entire internet was like, girl, it is so clear you didn't know. They bought her out. She redesigned. She renamed. It was like this. I was like, yes. Like, it was so clear that she was like, I had no idea and I fucked up. And it was just like such a sweet little corner of the internet a year or two ago where I was like, you know what? Everybody, that was like an instance of like, oh yeah, people like took a moment, took a step back. I didn't see anybody in the comments freaking out at her. Everybody was like, hey girl, hey. Anyway, so I kind of think of that as like a hopefully a baseline of, and that is someone that obviously was like, didn't mean, and there's all kinds of other people that are like, we'll double down and all that stuff. But there's so much gray area in between of like, you know what? And you are going to fuck up.
Yeah. Well, and it's just getting back to being human again. Like, it's so much of our, like, I keep talking about the algorithms, but it is like a social wide need to like constantly shame, need to constantly check people. And it's like, we need healthy ways to learn and not be told like, this is wrong instead of this is how we evolve.
Yeah. It's interesting. I occasionally hold little salon nights at my house. I try to invite as diverse as I can. And when I say diverse, I mean like ages and parents and not parents and, just it from all over the country and all this stuff. And it's been awesome. And we usually have a topic. And this was not the topic, but it came up and we started talking and everyone's phone's down. It's like, I think max 15 people. It's so much fun. It's so fascinating. It's such a great way to connect. But one night, the topic of shame came up I don't remember what that topic was that night. And we really had an hour-long debate of, was shame good for society and meant to be in society or horrible for it? And we really didn't come to a conclusion. It was really fascinating, right? Like, there's a point where shame does keep certain things in check, but it's gone too far. And then other people are like, no, you should never do it. And then like the difference between shame and guilt. Anyways, that is a complete different thing. But it was a really fascinating discussion on that, because the shame that we feel for things or the shame that's put on us, like I think that's another thing, like the difference between internal versus extra. Anyways, sorry. That was just a rant.
No, that's so fascinating. I would love to be a fly on the wall. Like, I think I've written a lot about shame specifically within politics, but also in scenes. So like with advertising, everything is about selling you something that you don't really need,
Right.
So a lot of it is about subtle shame. And so it's like, what is baked into our society because of just the systems that we live in versus like what is healthy versus what is not. And I feel like that's part is like, we're in the system. We can't extract ourselves from the system. So maybe shame is healthy in certain capacities, but it's really that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, shame in politics and advertising. Advertising is full. And maybe shame should be a little bit more in politics. I don't know.
Well, my experience with the Democratic Party is being on the ground. They'll give all these like big speeches at all the volunteers, and it is older white volunteers, and they are telling them to shame the voters that they're talking to, which are typically Latino marginalized voters. So there's a huge, like, it's like, that is again where it comes into
the disconnect,
realization, like, what kind of tools are we using? Again, are we educating people about the election, or are we just shaming them and saying like, why don't you vote? Oh, you have a full-time job, you can't go vote. Well, that's something wrong with you,
Yeah.
So it's
which is another reason why they're trying to get mail-in voting, because we're completely mail-in voting in Oregon.
Yeah.
We don't even have polling spots,
right,
like, at all.
And how is that going for y'all? Like, because that's been a very long-standing thing for Oregon.
Think we were the first in the someone is going to watch this and be like, no, that's not. I'm almost positive we were the first in the country to go fully committed. And I know, yeah, I'm sure I'm wrong about this, but I am, if not one of the first, because it's been, I mean, I don't remember how, I mean, it's been, I don't remember. I think I haven't gone to a voting booth since I was a teen. Like, yeah, anyways, you know, it's been interesting because, of course, you know, federally they're trying to make it illegal. Oregon will fight tooth and nail. Like, we also, you know, you automatically get registered to vote when you get a license.
Okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things here that encourage voting. And, you know, we don't have great turnout, to be honest. Like, truthfully, we really don't. You know, I don't know what it is comparative to other states, but it's easy. You know, you don't need postage. You can drop it off, you can mail it. There's all kinds of stuff. And so, like, that is definitely something that I think helps that, you know, I'm busy, I can't take time off of work kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, I've done it with friends and sat in my own house and done it. You know, it's way more accessible. But not to distract from your point and like the disconnect between people of privilege running Democratic Party and the realities of what people want. I mean, I think we're seeing the Democrats be absolutely freaked out by, you know, all of the Democratic Socialists being successful, which they should be excited about it. Like, it's so stupid. Like, it's not even like Democratic Socialist is like stupid because it's kind of centrist.
It's centrist, yes.
But, you know, yeah, so we're seeing success in New York, we're seeing success in other places, and, you know, the institution is having a hard time, as any institution of power never wants to give up power.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the center of that is housing. Like, I think one of the biggest things, and obviously if we really extrapolate it, it all has to do with wealth and elites holding on to the wealth.
Yes.
You know, like,
yep.
They don't want to pay for housing, they don't want to pay for healthcare, they don't want to pay for childcare. And that's really what
they sure love paying for bombs, though, don't they?
Super happy to do that. Yeah. And that goes the same for the Democratic Party. And a lot of that has to do with like who is running that versus who is actually a part of the constituency. And like the housing insecurity is a real thing that gets kind of brushed under the stories and the news coverage, and like everyone becomes anonymized and we really don't get to see the real impacts of the financial wealth gap that we're having right now.
It's just widening and widening. COVID, like watching the wealth gap widen at the beginning of COVID, and now it's just a fucking canyon in 6 years. I mean, it was already bad, and now it's atrocious.
Yeah, it is unfathomable at this point.
Yeah, right? Agreed.
Yeah. And I'm always trying to like turn it around, you know, wrap up the conversation and find some like hopefulness. But it's just, you know, we're in a really hard moment right now. And I guess.
Well, the thing that I'm going to say to, you know, turn around and find helpful is community. And there's privilege in community. I think that there are a lot of people that being in community is really hard emotionally for them, and it feels very out of their grasp. And I've seen that happen due to trauma and due to all kinds of things. And so I think that's easier said than done. I think it's easy for me. That's kind of just who I am, but I see folks who it really feels out of touch, and really hard to do that. And so that is another privilege. But I also watch an advantage of the internet is you can find the same weirdos like you are, that you feel comfortable being in community with without feeling like you got to fake it or mask. Like if and I think that that's something that is an advantage of the internet. Like I think about my mom raising my little sister who has Down syndrome in the 80s in Coos Bay, and like there was no fucking resources, there was no community. She was reinventing the wheel every step of the goddamn way. Like literally, and now you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have community all over the world that is like, oh my gosh, well, I figured this out and maybe this could help you, and blah, blah, blah. So I think that building community is the antidote. Being in community, I've found that it's a fad right now that's like community is inconvenient, but it's true. Like my bestie is like, no, you pick your friends up from the airport, suck it up, get up early.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Have some good tunes. You'll have a great time. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I'm the first hug you get when you get back.
Yeah.
Like what a privilege is that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, that fad of like, sometimes community is inconvenient I'm glad it's being brought up. And so I just think the anecdote is like being in community as much as you humanly can, because this world and capitalism is just forcing individualism on us, which is killing us and the planet. So that's my anecdote, is like, whenever I want to feel hope, is just like get in community, be in community, support your community. And sometimes for some people that, it is online, and that's okay. I think that's like, I know a lot of immunocompromised people that can't go and be in big crowds or whatever, but they have found a community online really, really well. And that's better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a lot of the reason why they're trying to take that away, is because, disabled people and other marginalized folks are finding what they need there. I really appreciate that like nuanced conversation around community, because it's something that I think about constantly, like being in, disability justice and understanding just like all of the ancestral trauma that we have, like the racial trauma that a lot of us just don't have the privilege to unpack. And I guess like I would love to hear a little bit about like kind of what would your recommendation be for those little steps of like, I know community is the answer, but I'm scared, or there's like a barrier.
Xanax.
Yeah.
It's a terrible, terrible joke. I think that we're very lucky in Portland. Portland is a weird town. We are a lot of people that talk a lot of progress and progressive, and yet our policies suck for a lot of ways. So, there's a lot of hypocritical, but at the same time, this is a town that you can be who you want to be easier than other places. It's not gonna be without problems. Nothing is utopia. There's always going to be bigotry and racism and homophobia and blah, blah, transphobia and all that stuff. But you can protect yourself in your little communities here. I think that like for the people that are like, I want it, but it's hard to have, man, I think that really just finding the weirdos that are weirdo like you. I mean, I don't, that sounds like a really simplified thing, but it's kind of like you're not going to go and like, you're not a hiker and go to a hiking meetup and find your people, like, okay, it's a bunch of Gucci people. Like maybe it's, listening to horror and doing crafts. Like maybe that's your jam. Yeah. You know what I mean? Maybe you start it. Maybe you invite one friend and ask them to invite someone you've never met, kind of thing, which is really scary to a lot of people, but it's important.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think about that too, of like kind of the little, like the breadcrumbs of like getting to that comfort level. I know I like after the pandemic, I still mask, I still am very COVID conscious, and being in spaces, it's like you have that one good experience hold on to that one good experience, keep going, find that next good experience, and then just like as things will roll and they'll start to evolve from there. You know, you're planting seeds, you don't know which ones are going to be sprouting, but some of them are going to sprout. You just have to water them a little.
I love that. I love that so much. And I think that people forget about the watering. I think that they're like, oh, I did that thing. Nothing came of it. I'm like, well, you do have to.
Yeah. And to your point about going, like the airport is just like, I think we are so trapped in individualism to the point that a lot of folks think community and is actually individualism. And it's like, we actually have to think.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I think sometimes when we talk about community, like, you know, we're like, I'm in a community. I'm in a community. It's like, well, that's just like a space, you know? Like, are you
what does it mean to actually be in community?
Yeah. It's like, there's capitalist community, essentially, which is still individualism wrapped inside of a group, versus like, let's think about that forward, long-term, liberatory community. Like, what is my responsibility? What is the responsibility of everyone else around me? How do I feel in the space? How am I helping everyone else feel good in the space? Like, is that relationship? Is that reciprocity? And like, that's our ownership. And a lot of times we don't take ownership of that because we're looking for that community. And it's like, well, why hasn't that come to me yet? And it's like, we have to do both.
You do have to do both. And I think that that's where a lot of people do get caught. And I think that, you know, as you're talking, it made me think of like, you know, friends getting together and going to one friend's house and weeding. And like everybody just weeds.
Yeah.
And then next week, everybody goes to the next person's house and everybody weeds. And I think of like that kind of thing is like, you know, it takes effort. It takes going and weeding on your day off someone else's house. You know, but it's also like, look at what we did. We did it together. We giggled. We maybe had a dance party. Like, it's super satisfying. We bonded. Like, let's do this again next year or next month or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that like those kinds of things are what really, really is the glue, you know, coming together. And it's, you know, it's a friend that, you know, we had a friend whose ex passed suddenly. They weren't quite exes. It was tragic. And we got together and we like did some witchy spells to rid her of it. And it was awesome. And everybody contributed something. Everybody brought something. Everybody brought either a food or, you know, a something to add to an altar or something like that. And it's, you gotta show up in the way that you're expecting other people to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
the give, not just the take.
Yeah. We do have to wrap, and I could just keep talking and about this.
Same.
But I guess, you know, to kind of keep on the good moods, you know, the last question that we always ask folks is kind of what's keeping you rooted these days? Are there any kind of stories, media, activities, things that are just kind of keeping you moving through the day?
I think lately it's been my best friend's health clinic. She started a health clinic. It's called Hey Doc. I'm just totally going to plug her business because it's incredible. And it's a health clinic that centers LGBTQ, Black, Brown communities, Indigenous communities. Everybody's welcome, but every provider is a person of color. And I think everybody's queer. I'm almost positive. But they just bought a building. They expanded. They can serve more of the community now. They just had a block party, kind of introducing everybody. And it's like, I get to be some of the background and like, of, you know, because my best friends, like we talk about our business all the time and like blah, blah, blah. And that has really been like seeing that success and seeing that really support community. And like, she is the person that taught me to be in community. Like, I already was that way, but she was like, no, it can be even better. And I was like, oh. And so I think that like the success of Haydock Clinic has really like buoyed me for the last like 6 months, to be honest. Well, they opened like 5 years ago, but like them moving into this, they bought a building, they're moving into the building. They can serve so many more people now. I think that's been something that's been really like in the world of making sure that marginalized folks have less access and she's just expanding is like pretty fucking rad. I think that really has been keeping me filled with hope.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. We're definitely going to plug that. So go into the show notes and check out their website for sure. Yeah. And it's just, I can imagine like the lightness and joy of just being taken care of by someone who understands.
Dude, it's bananas. Like the amount of people that like go into that space and realize that they're not going to have more medical trauma is fucking bananas. And like watching my friends go, oh, I didn't know it could be this way.
Yeah.
And it's so incredible. It's so incredible to watch that over and over and over again of like, well, and I'm like, yeah, this is what healthcare should be. People that fucking care and people that are, you know, trained in trauma or trauma informed and like all, you know, like all these things and care about the community and our community forward and look at things holistically. It's that when things are being taken away and they're just adding, it just like gives me all the like the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah. That is radical action.
You should actually talk to her. I think you should interview her. I will. I'm going to connect you guys because she'd be an incredible guest on this podcast.
I would.
And she'll put all of my talking points to shame. Like she is like, yeah.
Yeah.
She's also today is our 10-year friend anniversary. So no big deal.
Congratulations. That's a big deal. That is.
I know.
Good job. Okay. Well, I love that. You know, housing, healthcare, community, joy.
It's all the same. If one's out of whack, it's all out of whack.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate having you on, Lauren, because.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Yeah. We have to talk about the future. You know, we're living in this very dark time and it can feel so hard that like we're not going to have a future. But look at the past. Like a lot of people.
We've done it. We've come out of the spiral over and over and over again. And I keep seeing these little glimmers. The majority of the world wants better.
Yeah. Yes.
Like the vast majority. It's just the very loud minority. And that's what I keep reminding myself.
Yeah. And
the loud minority that happens to own all the microphones.
Right. We are more powerful than them. And we just have to stand up and show that. So thank you. Is there anything that you want to plug or share? We're definitely going to have all of your links in the show notes.
I mean, yeah, the silly home maintenance calendar, connects to your Google Calendar. I just got a notification that I'm supposed to clean my exterior today, which I actually did last week. So I'm very proud of myself. That's it.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Lauren Goche. It was so great to talk to you. And
such a pleasure.
I hope everyone else stays rooted.